playing today?
Oh, it's just a game I made up. I like to call it Check It. You know, I like to keep my exercise and keep in shape after eating all of my delicious recipes that I cook on my TV show.
Yes, exercise is very important.
Yes, it is. It is good for your heart and your brain and oh, my beautiful feathers.
And your feathers look lovely, Julia.
Oh, thank you, Miss Lehnert.
And you know what else, kids? You can do other exercises that are fun, like riding your bike, walking your dog, making up a game.
Oh, yes.
You know who else likes to exercise, Julia?
Who?
Stuart Little.
Stuart Little, yes! I would love to read more about Stuart Little and find out what he's been up to.
Okay, so today we'll be reading chapters 2 and 3. And this goes along with our comparing and contrasting this week in iReady, so you can compare Stuart's exercises to yours, or maybe make up a game and compare it to a traditional game. So with that, we'll get started on chapters 2 and 3.
Yay!
Chapter 2, Home Problems. Stuart was also helpful when it came to ping pong. Do you like ping pong, Julia?
I love to play ping pong.
The Littles liked ping pong, but the balls had a way of rolling under chairs, sofas, radiators, and this meant the players were forever stooping down and reaching under things. Stuart soon learned to chase balls, and it was a great sight to see him come out from under a hot radiator, pushing a ping pong ball with all his might, the sweat rolling down his cheeks. The ball, of course, was almost as high as he was, and he had to throw his whole weight against it in order to keep it rolling. The Littles had a grand piano in their living room, which was all right, except that one of the keys was a sticky key that didn't work properly. Do you like piano music, Julia?
Oh, I love the piano.
Kind of sounds like a bird singing, doesn't it?
Yes.
And here's a picture of Stuart rolling the ball. See, the ball is as big as he is. Mrs. Little thought it must be the wet weather causing the sticky key, but I don't see how it could be the wet weather, for the key had been sticking for about 4 years, during which time there had been many bright, clear days. But anyway, the key stuck, and it was a great inconvenience to anyone trying to play the piano. It bothered George particularly when he was playing the scarf dance, which was rather lively. It was George who had the idea of stationing Stuart inside the piano to push the key up the second it was played. This was no easy job for Stuart, as he had to crouch down between the felt hammers so he wouldn't get hit on the head. And here's a picture. He's inside the piano trying not to get hit with the hammers on the head. When you push the key, the hammers come down. It was exciting inside the piano, dodging about, and the noise was quite terrific. Sometimes after a long session, he would come out quite deaf, as though he'd just stepped out of an airplane after a long journey. Do you know what a journey is, Julia?
Oh, yes. A journey is like an adventure, like a trip.
I bet you've had many adventures and trips.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I love trips.
Mr. and Mrs. Little often discussed Stuart quietly between themselves when he wasn't around, for they never quite recovered from the shock and surprise of having a mouse in the family. He was so very tiny, and it presented so many problems to his parents. Mr. Little said that for one thing, there must be no references to mice in their conversations. He made Mrs. Little tear from the nursery songbook the page about 3 blind mice, see how they run. I don't want Stuart to have bad dreams. I don't want him to fear that a farmer's wife is going to cut off his tail with a carving knife. Do you ever have bad dreams, Julia?
Oh, I do indeed. I have bad dreams about losing my feathers and just all kinds of horrible things sometimes.
Oh, my. Yes, replied Mrs. Little, I think we'd better start thinking about the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse." I think it might embarrass Stuart to hear mice mentioned in such a belittling manner. That's right, but what should we change the word to? We can't just say "'twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring." We have to have a word that rhymes with mouse. How about louse, or grouse, or souse, said George. It was decided that louse was the best substitute for mouse. So they carefully covered up the word and wrote, "'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a louse."
Mouse!
The thing that worried Mr. Little most was the mouse hole in the pantry. This hole had been made by some mice in the days before the Littles came to live in the house, and nothing had been done about stopping it up. Mr. Little wasn't sure if Stuart might venture out and go into the mouse hole one day. What do you think? Will he go into the mouse hole?
Oh, I hope not. It's got to be be in there.
I imagine so. Mr. Little was very afraid, though. He said he had never seen a mouse yet that didn't like to go into a mouse hole. And here's the tiny mouse hole in the kitchen. Chapter 3, Washing Up. Stuart was an early riser. He was almost always the first person up in the morning. Do you like to get up early, Julia?
Oh, no.
Wait a minute. I thought birds like to get up and sing.
Oh, yes, the early bird does catch the worm, but good thing I don't like worms.
He liked the feeling of being the first one stirring. He enjoyed the quiet rooms with the books standing still on the shelves, the pale light coming in through the windows, and the fresh smell of day. In wintertime, it'd be quite dark when he climbed out of bed, and he sometimes shivered with cold as he stood in his nightgown doing his exercises. So he gets up early to do his exercises, Julia.
Oh, I love to exercise.
Stuart touched his toes 10 times every morning to keep himself in good condition. He had seen his brother George do it, and George explained it kept the stomach muscles firm and was a fine abdominal thing to do. And in the picture, you can see George exercising, and Stuart is right beside him exercising. How many times did he touch his toes?
10 times.
10 is correct. Very good, Julia. After exercising, Stuart would slip on his handsome wool wrapper, tie the cord tightly around his waist, and go to the restroom, creeping down the hall past many rooms. Of course, the bathroom would be dark, too, but Stuart's father had thoughtfully tied a long string to the pull chain of the light. Stuart could get on the string and swing on it to turn it on. Do you like to swing, Julia?
I love to swing from limb to limb, just like Stuart.
That's good exercise, isn't it?
It sure
Yes.
is.
To get to the sink, Stuart had to climb a tiny rope ladder, which his father fixed for him. George had promised to build Stuart a special sink, only 1 inch high, with a little rubber tube with water in it. But George was always saying he was going to build something and then forgetting about it. Do you forget things, Julia?
Oh, I do indeed, I do.
Stuart just went ahead and climbed the rope ladder to the family sink every morning to wash his face and hands and brush his teeth. Mrs. Little had provided him with a doll-sized toothbrush, a little tiny piece of soap, a doll-sized washcloth, and a doll's comb, which he used for combing his whiskers. He carried these things in his bathrobe pocket, and he laid them neatly in a row and turned the water on. But for such a small fellow, turning the water on was quite a problem. He had discussed it with his father. I can get up on the faucet all right, he explained, but I can't seem to turn it on because I have nothing to brace my feet against. Yes, I know, said his father. That's the whole trouble. George, who was listening, took out some boards, a saw, a hammer, a screwdriver, and some nails, and started building what he said was going to be a brace for Stuart. But then he soon became interested in something else and disappeared, leaving the tools lying all over the bathroom floor. Do you leave things on the bathroom floor, Julia?
Oh, no, I don't like messes at all.
Stuart, after examining the mess, turned to his father again. Maybe I can pound the faucet with something and turn it on that way. So Stuart's father gave him a very small, light hammer made of wood, and Stuart found that by swinging it 3 times around his head, letting it come down with a crash against the handle of the faucet, he could start a thin stream of water flowing, enough to brush his teeth in and moisten his washcloth. So every morning, after exercising, he would seize his hammer and pound the faucet, and the other members of the household would know that Stuart had been up early exercising, and now he was brushing his teeth. And that is the end of chapter 3. So stay tuned, kids, for chapter 4 coming up next week. And Julia, I think we can continue playing our game. Bye, kids!
Oh,